Hello everybody, welcome to the channel. I'm Adam and I'm a 31-year-old father from a nice little town in Staffordshire in the United Kingdom. That intro makes me sound like I'm on some weird kind of dating show. Please, if you do like this video, give us a like, hit the subscribe button. This is a new channel and obviously I'm trying to grow it. Now this video hasn't or isn't going to be created as necessarily an endorsement of all of Winston Churchill's politics or views. That isn't what this video is for. I'm sure that some of you out there will have different opinions on Winston Churchill. I happen to think that judging the men and women of history by today's standards is kind of absurd. It's like playing, I don't know, like a game for the PlayStation 1 and then moaning that the graphics aren't as good as the PlayStation 5 or whatever the PlayStation is now. Kind of doesn't make a lot of sense. Winston Churchill lived in different times, people had different views, different opinions, the world looked remarkably different than it does today. So whatever your thoughts and opinions are on Winston Churchill, dear viewer, I ask you kindly to put them to one side for a second. Whatever your opinions are on Winston Churchill, to me it's undeniable that he was a great mind. He managed to achieve some phenomenal things in his life, like defeating the Nazis and also writing 50 books within his lifetime. Where on earth he found the time to do all of that is beyond me. One of the things that fascinates me about Winston Churchill was that throughout his life he battled with extreme bouts of depression. Just think of the pressure that he was under during World War II. Until the Americans joined that war, it looked like Britain would be defeated. At one point it was quite obvious to a lot of people, or it seemed obvious to a lot of people, that Britain wouldn't be able to fight this war alone. He had the entire pressure of his people laid squarely upon his shoulders. I mean, that must have been a monumental burden to bear. When I look back at times of stress in my own life, it kind of pales in insignificance in comparison to what Winston Churchill had to go through. So I remember during a product launch back in 2019, I felt kind of stressed, was under a lot of pressure at work. And, you know, in my own little world, it was a big deal. I wanted to do a good job. I wanted to make sure that I was successful in launching this product. But if I didn't manage to do that, nobody was going to die. And one of the things I think that really intrigues me about Winston Churchill is that there were periods within his life where he was incredibly depressed. Not just stressed, I mean full-blown depression. I've read accounts where Churchill was apparently so demoralised, he spent weeks in bed, he couldn't function, he couldn't do anything. He was, a shell of the man that we know him to be as citizens of the world today. When we look back at that whole kind of wartime period, he wasn't the same guy. And if any of you have suffered with depression, that what I just said there will resonate, because that's depression. That's what it does to you. It takes you off your feet. You lose your appetite. You struggle to function. You feel despair, and many people, that leads to them spending a lot of time indoors, out the way, and that's what Winston Churchill went through. And like a lot of people who suffer with anxiety and depression, Churchill had an incredibly active mind. And obviously that explains how he managed to write so many books and keep Britain going during its darkest hour. US President Franklin D. Roosevelt once said of Winston Churchill, "Winston has 1,000 ideas a day, 4 of which are actually any good." And I'm pretty sure that my wife says something similar about me. But here's the thing though, it's all relative, isn't it? So whatever is bothering you right now, or when you look back at times of stress in your life, undoubtedly the hurdles that you faced, while maybe not resulting in the death of millions of people or the collapse of the European liberal order, to you they maybe are, or they would have been, objectively really tough to counter. So apart from drinking lots of whiskey or whatever it was that British wartime prime ministers drank, what did Winston Churchill do to alleviate his depression, to alleviate his stress, and go on to be one of this country's, most well-renowned leaders? Well, firstly, he named his stress. He actually gave it a name. Churchill referred to his stress as the black dog. By doing this, he was able to kind of comprehend exactly what it was. He had a clear picture of his stress in his mind, and then he was able to put things in place to psychologically try and counter what it was, the form of his stress. So when I've gone through tough periods in my life, it seems to spiral a little bit. I'll start to imagine things. I'll start to picture things. I'll start to see things that maybe aren't even there, and it just genuinely leads to me catastrophizing about a situation, and then not doing the things that I need to do. So I kind of like suffer before I need to, and use energy on something, mental energy on something that sometimes isn't even apparent. It's not even there. I've kind of created a situation in the future, and I'm already trying to deal with it, although it's not a reality yet, and that's rather exhausting. So this all normally leads to a feeling of pure despair, but using Churchill's process, I've adapted it for me, but using Churchill's process has helped me to kind of manage my stress in those situations. And that's why I feel obligated to share this technique on my channel, and why I've created this video. I mean, if this can work for Winston Churchill and little old me, then I think that it can help you, and I actually suggest that after this video you go away and try and practice this. It may not work, it may not help, but it did for me, so, as I said, I kind of feel like I should tell you about it. So here's how it goes. Firstly, name your stress or your depression. You can humanize it. You can create, an image in your head. It can be a fictional character. It can be a real life animal. It can be something that you're frightened of, something that you wouldn't like to touch. So pull out a piece of paper and actually draw what it is that you have in mind. I know this might sound a little bit silly, and it doesn't have to be a work of art. But seriously, pull out a piece of paper and sit for a second and actually think what your stress could look like. As I said, don't worry if you can't draw very well. This is an art attack. My 2-year-old is phenomenally better already at drawing than I am. It doesn't matter whether or not it actually looks like the thing that you think it looks like. Just draw something on a piece of paper that best represents to you your stress. Take a bit of time to do this as well. Really think about it. Once you've drawn your monster, your animal, whatever it is, actually sit back and process it. Think about the noises that it makes. Think about the texture of its skin. Think about what it looks like, what it actually is. Now, whenever your depression or your stress starts to take over in future, picture what you have drawn. And then ask yourself, what can I do to stop this thing? Now, for me, I really hate creepy crawlies. I just don't like them. I'd be terrible and I'm a celebrity. Get me out of here. They're just horrible. They're horrible. So my thing was a centipede. It is a centipede. Again, it's a badly drawn centipede, but that doesn't matter. And the reason I chose a centipede is because my stress, my anxiety, sometimes maybe my own form of depression, it feels like a centipede. It comes around quickly. It makes, a horrible noise. And it just fills me with, a bit of dread and disgust, and I don't want to be around it. And it's incredibly ugly. So all of those things kind of ticked a box for me, and it was obvious to me that that's what my stress would look like. There's a famous psychologist called Dan Siegel, and he likes to call this exercise name it and tame it. And I think, again, I'm not a psychologist, I'm not a trained professional here, but I think the purpose of doing that is that by being able to see it, you can kind of think, right, how would I tame this beast? What would I do to hinder and stop this if it was a real life object, it was a real life thing, and it was in front of me? So in my case, again, regarding the centipede, is when it appears, I can put a glass over it and stop it moving around, or if it's really bad, I can stamp on the thing to get rid of it and clean my shoe off and be done with it. So to conclude, look, as far as we know, Churchill never eliminated stress. He never actually, as far as we're aware, got over his depression. And I don't think you ever can. I think he learned to manage it. And the same, it might be the same for us. Maybe there are certain things, the way our mind works, the way our brain works, that we're unable to properly ever rid ourselves of the way that we feel in stressful situations, of a depression, of anxiety. But what we can do is potentially put, procedures in place to manage this better. And of course, I'm not a professional. I always advise that you seek out professionals. And this isn't a silver bullet, but I think that Churchill's technique here is one that we can borrow, and I think it can be effective. So like the rest of us, Winston Churchill was a human, and life threw sometimes rather sizable obstacles in his way, but it threw things at him, and like all of us, he had to deal with certain situations, and he needed to adapt and develop techniques that helped him through those situations. And as he wrote from time to time, he managed to domesticate his black dog. Like, he put a collar on it, he'd tie it up outside, and it could no longer bite him then. It was out of the way, and he was able then to move forward and deal with what he needed to deal with. And as we know now from history, not only did he manage to keep it in check, he managed to flip the table on it and thrive. And that in itself, I think, is an important message, and obviously an inspirational one as well. So anyway, let me know if this helps in the comments underneath. Look, again, I just want to clarify, I'm not a professional. This is something that's worked for me in my life or helps me in my life. If you are feeling depressed, if you are suffering with anxiety, or you are feeling terribly stressed at the moment, it is a really stressful time, then of course, seek out some professional help, do whatever you can to get that help. But if this helps, then great. Let me know in the comments underneath this video on what you think about this technique and, just what your thoughts are. And remember, if you like this video, give it a like, share it with a friend if you think it might help, and also subscribe to the channel, please. If you do that and I ever see you, I will buy you a beer when we're allowed to go to the pub again. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.